Hello friends, welcome to the session on Social Inclusion, a Perspective. In the policy discourse, efforts to promote social inclusion have arisen from concerns over social exclusion. Let me first raise two broader questions. What are the terms of participation for individuals and groups in society? How to enhance opportunities, access to resources, voice and respect for rights for people in the society. Two other related specific questions could be how and why people are being left out of the processes that make up society. What does it affect and what are the economic, social and political environments in which the problem is most apparent. As a political response to the exclusion challenge, social inclusion is a more deliberate process of encompassing and welcoming all persons, embracing greater equality and tolerance. Social inclusion is the process of improving the dignity, ability, and opportunity regardless of the basis of the identity to take part in society. It is a multi-dimensional process aimed at creating conditions which enable full and active participation of every member of the society in all aspects of life, including civic, social, economic, and political activities, as well as participation in the decision-making processes. Social inclusion is also understood as the process by which societies combat poverty and social exclusion. The question is how to make the concept of social inclusion operational even in the face of resistance to change. The challenge for policy makers is to find ways to dissociate the concept of social inclusion from the utopian realm of a perfectly inclusive world vision to redefining it as a practical tool used to promote an inspirational yet realistic set of policy measures geared towards a society for all. This requires a paradigm shift so as to recognize the dignity, value, and importance of each person not only as an ethical norm and moral imperative, but also as a legal principle, a societal goal, and ultimately practice. No human being should be condemned to endure a brief or miserable life as a result of his or her class, country, religious affiliation, ethnic background, or gender. What makes some societies more inclusive than others? And what are the elements necessary for creating an inclusive society? Firstly, it is the respect for all human rights, freedoms, and the rule of law at local, national, and international levels. Secondly, it is maintaining the security of all individuals and their living environment is paramount in creating a feeling of inclusion and an atmosphere of participation in society. To create and sustain inclusive societies, it is critical that all members of the society are able and motivated to participate in civic, social, economic, and political activities at all levels. A society where most members, if not all, feel that they are playing a part, have access to their basic needs, livelihoods, and are provided with the opportunity to participate in decision-making processes that affect their lives is a society that will best foster principles of inclusiveness. The existence of a strong civil society is fundamental for active participation and making public policies and institutions accountable. It nurtures a respect for the rights, dignity, and privileges of all people while assuming that they fulfill their responsibilities within their society. There must be freedom for people to express diverse views and develop unconventional, unique ideas members of society must have the confidence to engage and interact with each other and build mutual trust while acknowledging their differences. Thirdly, in order to encourage all inclusive participation, there must be universal access to public infrastructure and facilities. Fourth, it is important to note that access alone does not necessarily ensure use of public facilities. Unequal relations within communities and households may inhibit the use of facilities by vulnerable groups. Addressing the unequal power relations is therefore a necessary step to increase participation. Fifthly, equal access to public information, that is, mass media can be used as an effective tool to educate and enlighten members of society. The sixth element is equity in the distribution of wealth and resources. This is a critical element for inclusive societies. How the resources are allocated and utilized will significantly affect the orientation of a society either towards a more integrated, inclusive society or an exclusive, polarized and disintegrated one. Another dimension of inclusive societies is tolerance for and appreciation of cultural diversity. This includes societies that celebrate multiple and diverse expressions of identities. By celebrating diversity, there is a recognition and affirmation of the differences between and among members of society. Education provides the opportunity to instill values of respect and appreciation of diversity. At the same time, it can empower those who are marginalized or excluded from participating in discussions and decision making. Effective leadership is also crucial to the development of an inclusive society. Finally, there is a need to create positive narratives of an inclusive society of the future and enable each member of society to share, understand, and contribute to those narratives. In order to understand the actual process of social inclusion, some scholars suggest 5 categories of inclusion to be considered as incremental steps to promote social inclusion. These steps are hierarchical, visibility, that is, people need to be noticed, recognized, and should have their own voices. Consideration, concerns and needs of individuals and groups must be considered by policy makers. Access to social interactions, that is, able to engage in society's activities and social networks in their daily life, including economic, social, cultural, religious, and political activities. Rights, people must have rights to act and claim, rights to be different, legal rights, rights to access social services such as housing, education, transportation, and healthcare. Finally, resources to fully participate in society. This could include financial resources, capabilities, time, energy, physical conditions, recognition and respect, favorable spatial distance, etc. Social inclusion is multidimensional. There could be many dimensions for inclusion. It could be cultural, economic, social, environmental, legal, physical, political, relational, spatial. Hence, the efforts should be to frame inclusive policies and legislation, provide access to clean and safe places for living, work and recreation, access to information and communication, access to public spaces, access to resources, access to basic services including education, healthcare, clean water and sanitation, access to transportation. Further, ensuring transparent and accountable decision making processes, adequate income and employment opportunities, affirmation of human rights, opportunity for personal development. respect for diversity, freedom of choice, religion, etc., participation in decision making, social protection, and finally, the most important for all other elements, that is solidarity, the spirit of brotherhood. For successful social inclusion to take place, it is necessary to examine the areas in which inclusion is weak and where exclusion is most prevalent, and where engagement is least successful and participation is faltering. Structures, processes, and relations of power that exist within societies, which result in the inclusion of some and exclusion of others, need to be examined contextually and addressed appropriately. For this to happen, legal, regulatory, and policy frameworks in a society must be inclusive. The societies need to uphold and promote just and inclusive processes in all areas of implementation so that equal access to basic education, public space, facilities, and information is ensured. Finally, diversity and cultural pluralism should be respected and accommodated. Thank you.